Welcome back to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. This is what's been going on in Russia in the past 24 hours. Europe is preparing to widen the pressure campaign on Russia in a way that tells us something important about where this war is headed. The European Union's foreign policy chief says officials will propose roughly 1,600 additional Russian individuals and entities for sanctions in September, with adoption targeted for October. That would increase the existing list by about one-third, with the main focus on the military-industrial network supporting Moscow's war. The design matters. Rather than starting with another broad sectoral package that could become trapped in arguments among member states, the proposal leans on targeted listings, asset freezes, transaction bans, and travel restrictions. Later measures are expected to cover the trafficking of Ukrainian children, cyber activity, and disinformation. In other words, Europe is increasingly treating factories, financiers, logistics intermediaries, and information operations as parts of one war support system. That does not mean 1,600 names automatically translate into 1,600 strategic effects. Russia has learned how to reroute procurement, rely on third countries, and replace exposed intermediaries. The test will be enforcement. Beneficial ownership records, customs intelligence, transaction monitoring, and coordinated pressure on the firms that keep reappearing under new names. A giant list without that follow-through is just a very serious-looking spreadsheet. The more immediate pressure is inside Russia's energy and distribution system. A second wave of gasoline shortages has reached at least 10 regions after supplies appeared to stabilize near the end of July. Some stations in the Moscow region were again out of gasoline, and the Russian government acknowledged difficult conditions across a wide geographic spread. Exchange sales of gasoline also dropped by about 20% in early August compared with the second half of July. Seasonal demand is part of the picture. But recurring refinery attacks are the stress multiplier. Moscow has already banned fuel exports, lowered fuel quality requirements, and brought in imported product. Those measures can shield the military and other priority users, but they shift the strain to civilians, regional transport, agriculture, and local services. This is not a one-day box score. The strategic effect comes from forcing the system to absorb repair costs and distribution problems over and over again. The same logic is visible at Novorossiysk, Russia's main Black Sea oil port. Loading resumed after a drone attack caused a temporary halt and filled terminal storage. The port can handle about 700,000 barrels per day, so its quick restart limited the immediate market effect. But every shutdown forces tankers, storage, rail, and pipeline schedules to adjust. It also exposes Kazakhstan, which depends on Russian infrastructure to move its own crude to global markets. Ukraine is signaling that it wants to add speed to this campaign. Former Defense Minister Mikhailo Fedorov says domestically produced ballistic missiles could be operational within 3 to 6 months. That is an ambition, not a fielded capability, and it depends on successful testing, production quality, guidance, and warhead integration. Still, ballistic missiles would compress warning time and challenge Russian defenses more than many of the drones and cruise missiles Ukraine currently uses. The strategic attraction for Kyiv is independence. A domestic inventory would be less vulnerable to Allied restrictions and political delays. It would also let Ukraine threaten targets at operational depth while saving scarce foreign weapons for missions only those systems can perform. The warning for Moscow is that today's refinery and logistics campaign could become harder to intercept if Ukraine moves from slow, visible swarms toward faster mixed packages. Weekend operations provided one sharp test of that burden. Ukraine mounted one of the war's largest aerial attacks, burning a logistics complex near Moscow, despite Russian claims of hundreds of interceptions. Russia struck Ukrainian cities, ports, and gas facilities, while Ukraine's state gas company reported 13 attacks in 1 week and reduced production. Both sides are attacking the systems that move, fuel, and sustain the war. That exchange also pushed risk into NATO airspace. A Spanish fighter operating under alliance authority shot down a drone over Romania, while Moldova reported a Shahed-type drone crossing its territory. Dense attack packages create a genuine escalation problem even when nobody intends to hit an alliance member. A failed interception, an uncertain flight path, or an incorrect public attribution can force political decisions on a very short clock. That makes alliance procedure part of the deterrence contest. NATO members need shared tracking, predictable engagement rules, and rapid public attribution that separates confirmed flight paths from assumptions about launch origin. Clear process reduces the chance that Moscow reads a defensive interception as a wider attack, or that political pressure forces an alliance response before commanders understand what crossed the border. So the central Russia story today is cumulative pressure. Europe is preparing a much larger sanctions network. Ukraine is producing repeatable effects against fuel and logistics. Russia is still inflicting severe damage on Ukrainian energy and cities, and it retains the heavier missile arsenal. The contest is shifting toward regeneration. Who can repair faster, replace lost components, disperse defenses, and keep producing weapons at scale? Watch 3 indicators. First, whether Russia can restore stable fuel availability without sacrificing exports or military demand. Second, whether Ukraine's ballistic timeline produces verified tests and real production rather than another ambitious announcement. Third, whether NATO members establish clearer cross-border tracking and engagement procedures before the next mass strike package creates a more dangerous incident. Thanks for listening. Keep your maps open, your sources skeptical, and your notifications on. For the written brief, find us at restrictedhandling.substack.com. See you tomorrow.